name is Andrew Warren. My hometown is Mission, Kansas, not Mission Hills, a little suburb of Kansas City. I did my bachelor's at KU, but I did my master's at Fort Hays State, and I completed that in 2003 in history with a minor in political science. I was practicing law in Dodge City, and I really didn't want to move back to eastern Kansas. I came up and visited the late Allan Busch, who regrettably has just passed on, was one of the history professors that Dr. Liston sent me to meet. And he roughed me up. I think sometimes maybe when JDs come back to school, there's issues. And he put on the Professor Dry as Dust Act. And he kind of put me off. Turned out to be one of the 2 or 3 best faculty members I've ever had as in higher education. And I just loved the guy. He worked me to death. He imparted an astonishing amount of information to me. I still have the notes from his classes. I took more than one class from him. And so I took graduate liberal studies from Dr. Faber. We had to read a book to practice critical thinking called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And I expected that to be a great book. Austrian Jewish psychiatrist who survived the Nazi death camps. I didn't think it was very good. With this guy's education background and surviving the Nazi death camps, frankly, you'd expect a little more than do something important. And I said so. And I got an A on the book review, and Dr. Faber said, "Isn't this bad?" Exclamation point. So I get in Professor Busch's class, and I thought, the way to really impress faculty is to trash a book. So I think it was one of Forrest McDonald's constitutional history books. I can't remember which one it was, but it was really pretty good. Of course, I say, this book is terrible, you know, this and this and this and this. And I think I got the only B on anything I did in grad school. I got a B-, and the only comment on it was, maybe you could do better. And I thought, well, I'm not off to do a very good start with Professor Busch. But in my last assignment with Professor Busch, he gave me 100% on it. And I went into Dr. Liston, who was my advisor, and I said, look at this. And she looked at it and she said, I've never seen him give 100 before. That I was very proud of. Every professor I took a class from here fascinated me in some way. And one of them was Ray Wilson, who did some things that really helped and advanced my career. And one of them was, I had written pretty good research papers as a student. And he directed me to write a paper about a case called the Osage murders down in the hills of Oklahoma. A bunch of guys got murdered on an Indian reservation. And I'd started to get a little lazy about drafts of research papers. And I turned one in that I thought was okay. And he never named me in the seminar class, but he went off about some of us who knew better and had not done quality work. I mean, he went off, and I knew exactly who he was talking about, and I was really embarrassed because I'm sitting here thinking, it's a draft. And he's doing his deal. I got that thing cleaned up, and it got published. I didn't think it would. He kept telling me, I think they'll publish it. I said, it's not that good. And he said, yeah, it's that good. It'll get published. And it was because of him that paper was publication quality. David Goodlett, who's become kind of a buddy of mine, I started getting my final semester here, all of these invitations to join academic fraternities and sororities. they're going into the circular file. I went over to Professor Goodlett the day after I'd gotten an invitation to join Phi Kappa Phi. Never heard of it. That's the Phi Beta Kappa for universities like Hayes. So I went over to Professor Goodlett and I said, I'm getting all these resume building for 25 and 60 bucks, join this and be outstanding in your field and so on. Which resume building fraternities and honoraries are you being asked to invite? He knew what was coming. And I said, Phi Kappa Phi or something like that. I got that the other day and threw it in the trash. And he goes, have you dumped your trash? And I said, no, why? And he goes, that is not resume building fluff. You want to join that one. And I said, what's the big deal? And he goes, well, that's like Phi Beta Kappa. So I went home and did some Google, and I thought, we'll start going through the trash, and it was still there, as you would expect in my house. But I owe Dr. Goodlett for that one. And Liston was terrific. Dr. Liston was a constant encouragement to me. And as pompous and loud as I sound here, I'm actually quite insecure about my intellect. Dr. Liston really went to work on that. And I'm going over to Wilson, I hope, on this trip to spend an hour with her. Well, I'm very proud of my Adam Smith donation to the university. Adam Smith was the seminal author of Capitalism and Free Enterprise, and I inherited from my mother's side of the family a 1793 complete edition of Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. And it had come to Kansas, according to family oral history, in a covered wagon. It obviously had been deteriorating for years. And I thought, this needs to go someplace that can take care of it, that'll appreciate it. And it took me about half a second to think, I'm going to donate this to Hayes. And you would think I had donated the Jefferson Memorial to this university the way I was treated. The library staff here, which is part of the reason I concluded that Hayes could handle it. It was coming here, no debate, no thought. And I'm very proud of that because that's a rare and valuable item. I've also donated from the same source a late 19th century complete works of Mark Twain. Now, I didn't think that was that big of a deal, but Brian Gribben, special collections guy here, and Dean Ludwig thought we'd like to have that. Hayes has welcomed anything I got, so that's how those got here.